What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 66 of Doomfist View. I'm ChanManV. Actually, it's the overview. But since we have Doomfist, we gotta have to leave it that way. But welcoming ZP, what's up? He's obviously looking a lot different today. What's up, man?
I'm enjoying the summer sun. And some people might think that my webcam is just broken here, but realistically speaking, yeah, bring out your power glove for a test ride. I will say though, Doomfist View, we are trying way too hard today.
we are. I'm going cheese. That's just how it has to be. Jake, what's up, man? From LGEvil.
Hey, how's it going? It's great to be back.
Yeah, man. Still got that empty house there, I see.
Oh, yes. Living in the basement, you know. Obviously, I sleep on the wooden floor behind me, in case anyone was confused about that.
Well, some people stream from sheds, Jake.
I'm an esports monk. I'm an ascetic.
Really? Oh, man. Okay, guys. Well, anyways, we had a huge announcement like 3 hours ago. I think it was maybe 3 or 4 hours ago. And it's something that a lot of us anticipated, which was Doomfist was coming out very soon. In fact, a lot of people had already seen some possible leaks in era logs that Doomfist was coming out with the Summer Games. Well, it looks like that is exactly true, right? Because the Summer Games starts in August. Doomfist was released in the PTR today. So, 4 weeks later, that's probably going to be that event. And we have Doomfist now on PTR, and everybody is currently playing it. So I guess first question is, how much have you guys gotten a chance to play it so far?
Well, for me, I got about 15 minutes before the show began. In fact, I may or may not be in PTR right now. And really, you mentioned the Summer Games. My only question is there going to be Karate Doomfist, and is he going to have a red color to it? Because if not, it is an absolutely wasted opportunity.
Karate Doomfist?
We need black belt Doomfist.
I need a legally acceptable Ken ripoff.
Oh, nice.
That's what I want.
Okay. I was thinking you'd go like Daoism or something like that. You're going Ken? You're going the Ken route.
Shoryuken. He literally has a Shoryuken. How do you not?
Oh, true. Okay, all right. That's true.
Come on, up your FGC knowledge.
I totally missed that reference there. Okay, got you now. Got you. Okay, well, I've gotten a chance to play it. I think I played about 7 rounds of the No Limits, like the arcade styles, just so everybody could play it. And it was really, really fun. I mean, obviously, absolutely powerful. But I guess first impressions, and then we'll go into all the abilities and all that good stuff. So first impressions of Doomfist.
I played him for about like an hour in just custom games with a teammate. We were just like testing him and testing interactions and like seeing how getting all the damage down and figuring out how combos are going to work, what the setups will be, what the counterplays are going to be.
Yeah.
First impressions, he looks really strong. He looks like he has a ton of burst damage that is essentially uncounterable except by dodging.
Yeah.
The only counter to that burst damage is going to be really high mobility. So characters like Reinhardt, even D.Va has been a classic, counter to aggressive dive damage. And D.Va's going to do almost nothing against Doomfist.
Mm-hmm.
She can deal with the shotgun, but she can't stop you from hitting massive, just the melee combos or your cooldown combos. And then, you stack that on top of something like a Genji dash and a Winston leap, and it very quickly turns into a situation in which there doesn't seem to be a way to play defensively. It seems like this character is going to force teams to go all out on offense, even when they're playing defense.
Wow.
So it should be kind of fun to play. Good luck watching it.
Just to pile onto that, as far as it goes, maybe I'm misreading the abilities here. We have very little play time, but I would say the bigger thing for me, and we're talking about in the pre-show, is that it feels like a bad meta to be a burly German, man. Now Reinhardt already had to deal with people flanking him from behind, but now he has to deal with getting uppercut into the air and thrown back by rocket punches. Kind of seems rough to be a Rein main at this point. When Rein was already an endangered species. Might be wrong in terms of how it plays out, but it does seem really rough for Reinhardt.
Yeah, he's just a shooting dummy at this point. I mean, he's already a shooting dummy for tracers and characters like that in dive. Now this is even worse. Like, it takes away his shield, takes away his ability to block, potential ults and things like that. This is really, really bad times to be Reinhardt. And it sounds like, Jake, you're mentioning Orisa might be more viable than Reinhardt in this case.
I mean, I think Orisa is interestingly really good against Doomfist, just in the pure one-on-one because of Fortify. You can't be knocked back, so it's impossible for the punch to deal extra damage to you.
That's true.
And you also can't be uppercut, so almost all of his CC just stops working, which is pretty significant, right? It really changes how
What is the logic
changes
behind
the
that?
ability of the character.
What is the logic?
I thought the idea is that she's like, Orisa's like the OR-15, right? So, Doomfist destroyed the weak OR-15s, but she's the powerful OR-15. So she's like better equipped. She's specifically equipped to counter him. But that character is irrelevant and terrible, so it's not like it's going to matter. Maybe an Orisa Torb might come back in some defense. I don't know.
Look, it's almost like Orisa was built to counter Doomfist or something. Almost in the lore.
But she came out first.
But
it's like, what?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. She came out first because who was going to pull people in the Sanctum when people were trying to make that strategy? So.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see the effect on the game.
Doomfist.
I do. The only thing that could get a little bit rough is if it does lead to the rise of. You already had two really good dive characters in Tracer and Genji from the DPS side of things. Now, just like we're not all soldiers now. Now we have a fist involved also. And let me just note. Maybe it'll go down that way. I think people tend to make pretty sweeping judgments on how good a character is going to be or what it's going to be used in from the beginning. There's been many a case where a change comes out or something happens where people think that this is it. Everyone's going to play in this way, and that'll be that. And oftentimes it doesn't go down that way. The best example I can give from recent memory is when Lucio got changed, a change that a lot of players really do like now. But in the very beginning, the pro community was doom and gloom, saying that everyone was going to be massively deathballing and not going away from Deathball with Lucio, which didn't really pan out that way.
Yeah, I mean, of course, everybody's going to make very quick judgments, but, first impressions are a big deal because first impressions are what everybody's going to do. The instant he actually does come out and people are going to try things immediately. Now,
yeah, but it's better than a good first impression. The person who figures out what actually works first.
Well,
so.
Of course.
I think one interesting thing is that compared to like something like the Lucio change, which is a little bit harder, I think, to interpret because it is an adjustment of an existing hero. So that sort of functions almost like you're removing one hero and adding another. And, it also came alongside the other balance changes, notably to Winston, significant buffs to Winston that actually occurred for like 3 consecutive patches. So I would say the Lucio one, there was there's a lot of understandable reasons why people got it wrong and thought that it's going to bring in maybe a return, I guess, to the tankier meta. But with Doomfist, I mean, the question is really, that's the only addition to the game, right? So the question is, how does the game change from its existing state, its current balance? And in my mind, this character is insanely strong against characters like Ryan. Like anything slow that is going to allow you to set up for wall combos and is going to, any character that wants to sort of sit together and create like a tight phalanx is going to be absolutely demolished by this character. It seems he's what he's designed to do. And then you say, okay, well, maybe it's not going to radically change the meta. So the question is, will it adapt the current existing comps? And then you look at a character like Genji, who absolutely loves characters that can deal unblockable damage. And Doomfist is the single best character at dealing unblockable damage in the game by far, better than Winston. So to me, I see an incredible combo potential with Genji. So my question is, why would we change what we're already doing? We're just going to do it better with the new character.
Yeah, this is probably the first. Well, before we get any more talk, let's actually take a look at the abilities because some of the people that might be watching or listening don't know the abilities. So we should show them here. Let me find it. Okay, hold on, give me a second while I bring it up. Okay, here we go. Oh no, that's not right. There we go. All right. So Doomfist, this is the list of abilities when you press F1, when you're inside the game. So she has a hand cannon, and I think the best way to describe it is it's kind of similar to D.Va's, but it's definitely less shots, right? But it has this kind of shotgun feel. I think officially it comes from her left fist. So each of her knuckles has a bullet that comes from it. And she actually has a clip, too. So it's not like D.Va where she has infinite shots. She has 4 clips, and each of the knuckles are a clip. The interesting part is it's not like infinite shots, but at the same time, you don't have to reload. It like auto reloads a clip at a time. So it doesn't reload the entire thing, the entire 4 clip. It just reloads one at a time. So yeah, first off, what do you guys think about the cannon? Like, is it going to be super good with, I don't know, Discord or anything like that? Or what do you guys think?
It's free damage when he's up close. He's going to be initiating with his abilities, but anytime his abilities are on cooldown, he has extra damage. And if you take a look at it, actually it has a reasonable spread on it. It's not that big of a spread if you're in it properly. And I mean, it's good damage from what we can tell. Obviously, it has to be play tested, but his primary fire seems perfectly fine, especially given the fact that he is going to be using the ability like every second, given how short the cooldowns are.
Yeah, I mean, it's anything you don't have to reload is insane. Like, you think about something like D.Va. I mean, D.Va's gun is made a lot less useful by the fact that her mobility is, you know, virtually non-existent when she's firing, at least. And, you know, you compare that to a character like Doomfist, who, although he doesn't have infinite ammo in the way D.Va does, you're never going to want to shoot more than 4 shots. You know, and very rarely are you going to be waiting for that reload. You're going to be shooting 4 shots, combo, shoot 2 shots, combo, shoot 2 shots, combo. You know, you're always going to be using cooldowns because these are very, very quick cooldowns. They give you HP and they disorient the enemy. There's no reason that you're going to really like want a huge clip, but the fact that you don't have to reload is absolutely massive, especially considering that this gun is a little worse than Reaper shotguns in terms of damage, a little worse than Torb shotguns as well in terms of damage, but he has more range and better spread than any other shotgun in the game, unless you count like Roadhog right click, but you know, Roadhog sucks. Feels bad, man. So I think it has great synergy. Again, it's like a really cool thing to give the character because it's exactly what he wants. But the question is it a little too much what he wants?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because generally this character is a melee character, yet they still added projectile, or at least some type of, you know, shotgun projectile to it. So I wonder why they didn't just have like an extending arm or something that you can punch a little bit further and just really keep it all melee.
The extendo arm is in Doomfist 2.0. Please look forward to it.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, in general, one thing we haven't really touched on here too, and his kit and everything else is just his ultimate, which should be interesting.
We're going to go through each thing first, and then we're
going through everything in full.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's talk about the Seismic Slam next, which is the E. And you know, a lot of Seismic Slam is, and because Jeff and his developers update even reference this too, it's referred in a lot with combos with the uppercut. But let's just talk about Seismic Slam by itself. So Seismic Slam is officially, it stuns your character, right? In this kind of, does it stun? Like, I'm a little confused as to how it works.
He said that the ult stunned, and he also said that the E stunned. Both of those are just completely false. Not true.
Yeah,
I don't know if he has played the game
I'm
before. I'm
actually a little confused.
Neither of those is true. I tested him. I was like, well, this is just, you said the word stun. I mean, I thought that means something, but it's a deposition on at least the E. You can like affect their position, but it's more like the effect that like a graviton would have, where it just moves your character. It doesn't actually change anything. And it's not nearly as disorienting as like an Orisa pull or something.
Okay, so let's just be clear about it. Whenever you slam the ground, and this is whenever I'm observing it, when I slam the ground, I end up like basically leaping forward, right? Does it do any kind of pulling or anything like that, or literally all you do is jump forward?
It does seem to have a little bit of a...
So imagine wherever you land, wherever it might be, the reticle I found to be like really buggy. Like when the reticle would show up, you can use it on flat ground, but the reticle doesn't show up on flat ground. So the reticle is like really difficult to actually use to understand the ability, except if you're like really high up in the skybox and you want to know where you're going to land. But essentially, you can imagine right where you land, there's a cone laid out in front of you, almost like a Reinhardt shatter, and it's much smaller than a Reinhardt shatter. Don't get me wrong, but that sort of shape. And essentially anything in that cone that you hit with the ability as you land is going to be pulled towards you. So like the point of the cone. So it sort of lands right in front of you. So it's a great way to combo. You could E someone and then you could set up an uppercut. You could also E someone and then right click them into a wall. You could E someone and use shotguns because you bring them close. There's a lot of like combo potential with it, but it is a pull. It's very quick and there's no stun. So you can't like lock someone down with this ability, and you also can't cancel things like Winston jump or D.Va jetpack, 2 things that can be canceled with, for example, the Orisa right click. So it doesn't work like some of the other D positions in the game, but on characters like supports maybe that have low mobility, or like a Lucio, you can sort of, you know, pull him back a little bit, make it a little bit easier to get that extra damage in or set up a combo.
The other thing I note about it too is that it's also a secondary way of getting close. It has a downward tilt to it, but it does give you more forward movement coming up from a higher angle. So if you drop down, not only can you get close to people, but even if you miss, you're still really close to land an immediate right click on people. Like one thing about and we'll get to it when we get to a little bit more, but in terms of talking about the combo, you don't always need to go for a long charge up. So long as you're near the area, you can immediately just tap right click for a quick extra hit on, and then combo with left click, so on and so forth.
It's so cool that we're talking about combos, you know, with these characters, because in the past it was Genji, you know, right, with maybe a 3-4 thing type of move combo. Roadhog at times, right? You could sneak in like the right click and then pull and then left click type of thing. But this is just outright crazy comboing, right? With the
I just want to note, like, thank
crazy.
God for Doomfist, because his combos probably have more depth than Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite comboing, and that game's a fighting game, but that's also because Capcom just totally messed up with that game. Calling it.
Okay, nice to get that Capcom jab in
right,
there.
It's important to get that in from time to time.
Goodness. Okay. But yeah,
DBZ Fighter or DB Fighter Z for life.
So the seismic slam was interesting because I was using it like I would uppercut and then try to seismic slam when I would come down, and it sounds like I should have been doing the opposite.
The seismic, I mean, you can use it that way, and it's okay. Because the uppercut doesn't really give you lateral motion, which seismic slam really does give you lateral motion. It's like a leap forward plus the slam. So it's like a massive gap closer to do uppercut on nothing and then just seismic slam. It's like I think it's longer than a Genji dash. I haven't exactly tested it, but it feels extremely long, and you can go over obstacles with it. So it's probably the best gap closer in the game, although it costs you 2 abilities. So depends how you think about it. But when you land and get shields, if you actually successfully hit your seismic slam to get shields, and then you can combo with the right click, give more shields, it's pretty dangerous, And if you can imagine having stuff like a Genji, a Winston, and a Tracer in with you, that's going to get extremely dangerous.
Well, the other thing out there is that it costs 2 abilities, but the abilities have some of the very shortest in the game. His
like 4 or 5. Yeah.
His charge forward is a 4-second cooldown, so that's why, like just talking about before, like just small taps on it, or you're probably gonna see quite a bit up close where it's just like, oh, we're going on Doomfist. Nope, mini stun plus left click. Because here's the thing: is that if you look at how the right click works, is that you can immediately just mix in about 2 left clicks right away without the person being able to deal with it. So there's a lot in his kit, even without setup, that is seemingly surprisingly deadly.
Yeah. And so what's interesting, too, about the uppercut, and we're kind of, I guess, transitioning over to the uppercut, which is the shift, is you can actually move levels, right, with the uppercut. You can actually jump to a second floor by using the uppercut, because originally I was like, oh, okay, this guy's like basically limited to the floor, because whenever you right-click with your rocket punch, you can't change levels. But then I was like, oh, no, you uppercut and then you change levels. So you can still flank with this guy like really, really well.
Absolutely. I mean, the E also gives you a slightly additional height boost. Like it's a very small one, but you can even make it to higher ground that way. Like some things you can't make with just uppercut. You need also seismic slam, but it's not like the cooldown's long. It's not like you're super scared after you do that.
Yeah.
My favorite thing is going to be when you start seeing Farah's getting punched out of the air, where it's just, why is this happening? It's bad enough with Genji.
Farah's actually insane. Like it's almost impossible to hit her. At least, I don't know. I was playing and the PTR was lagging on like 300 ping, so maybe that was a problem, but Farah is extremely good against Doomfist for what it's worth.
Yeah, I mean, it's a case where I'd assume Farah would have a better matchup there, but technically she's supposed to have a better matchup against Genji, and that doesn't stop people from going for anti-air Dragon Blade. So I'm very much looking forward to the first time in a tournament where you see a Farah up there just getting punched directly out of the sky and chat blows up with one punch, etc. Like that's the other thing too, is that we're talking about skins here.
Awesome.
You need 2 skins for this guy at least. One is you need a skin that makes him look like Ken from Street Fighter, and 2, you need a skin that, well, he's already bald, so he's got that.
One Punch Man.
Yeah, you just make him look like
Man.
for One Punch Man.
Like,
he's already lacking the hair, so he's like halfway there.
Huge red rubber glove, like a massive red rubber glove. That's all I'm looking for in a legendary.
Awesome. Yes, man, that would be so good for a skin.
Also, rip Doomfist's hair. Sorry, rip my hair.
Rip your hair. Well, there better be achievement where you kill a Farah out of the sky with the uppercut.
I wonder what the achievements are.
It's gonna be good. It has to be kill 10 guys or kill 5 guys with the uppercut from the air. But let's talk about Rocket Punch. This one's pretty interesting because it kind of duels as mobility as well as offense, right, and damage. And the first thing I noticed is that the refresh on it's very, very quick. So I immediately started comparing it to just like a Diva boot, thrust. And it's pretty similar to it when it, feels like a faster Reinhardt charge. So that felt just really good mechanically and just, from the standpoint of UI and feel. But in terms of the power, what do you guys think? Like, how do you compare the power of the Doomfist or the Rocket Punch compared to other characters? Like charge and things like that.
It one-shots you.
Is it one-shot you? Okay.
Yeah, if you hit it does 100 a full charge, right click, does 150 on strike, and then 100 extra wall damage. So it one shots May.
wow.
And by the way, when you get hit by it, you are stunned. So like you can't be popping a Wraith or an ice block before you hit the wall. It's not possible. You're stunned in the animation of it. It also is a stun in the sense that it cancels all channeled abilities. If you with no charge, like if a Roadhog pops his ult and he's still in the setup stage, so he can't push you away, or if you're behind him, you can just cancel it with like a just tap right click, goodbye.
Here's the big thing for me in evaluating this ability is that, realistically speaking, is that the gut instinct for a lot of people when they first start playing Doomfist is going to be to play dive, get in people's faces, reckless abandon. I think the stage 2 of what people are going to do with Doomfist at points, just to vary things up and be less predictable, is that you're going to want to check your corners. Like, you're going to go in on engagement, and there's going to be a Doomfist hiding behind the corner, fully charged up, ready to go in on the first person he sees. And that's actually going to be pretty effective because you'll be able to set up cases where you'll be able to knock people into the wall immediately for a quick kill, or just displace them to such a degree that they're not going to be able to recover. Like, let's bring up Reinhardt here for an example. Yeah. Reinhardt's leading the Vanguard going forward, and there's just a Doomfist hiding in the corner that punches Reinhardt in the back, can immediately follow up with an uppercut, and also the Reinhardt is now displaced from his team. Kind of a bad place to be, and that's just like one of many ways you can probably ambush this dude. So
exactly,
Reinhardt this hero has a tremendous flanking potential. The D position is better than the hook because it doesn't stun you. I mean, it does stun you sort of to use it, but you can use it much like the hook, and you can also walk slowly while charging it. So you can like jump off high ground and charge it up and then just slap them away to your team, hit them with an uppercut for the CC, and then if they try and escape, you have a seismic slam. You can also ult in, you can ult out. This character has, I think, is the definitely on par with Genji Tracer for highest skill ceiling in the game.
It's great that they added a character with high skill ceiling though. So definitely kudos to them for that. And just the power level I think is really, really good, because Doomfist coming out very, very weak would have been super disappointing. So I'm glad they did that. One thing that you just alluded to too with the rocket punches, if you hold down the rocket punch too, guys, it charges up too. There's a level of charge to it. You can do a quick little hit, which doesn't do nearly as much damage. And obviously, if you charge it up, you can travel a long ways with it. You go flying across the screen, and when you nail somebody, it definitely feels like a Reinhardt, charge and kill. One thing that about this character too, and is that it has a passive, and given that he's the type of character that's going to dive into just like a giant mix of characters, and instead of having him die super fast, they did add the ability for him to have some resilience in terms of shielding and things like that. So the way it works, and you guys, I mean, again, like I'm not 100% clear, but whenever he lands a punch, whether it's rocket punch, uppercut, I guess even slam, or does it count for slam too?
Yeah, all 3 cooldowns. Okay, I don't know if the ult does it. I forgot to check, but it shouldn't matter anyway. But
so if he lands any kind of damage,
it probably does. Yeah. Like, why would? But.
If he lands any of those things on any of the character or any of your enemies, you get a charge, like a shield charge, and there's actually 4 charges. I don't know how that works. Like if you have 4, I mean, is it one of those things?
You get 70. I think it's 75 per one. I can't remember because I was testing it on like 1,000 HP, so I could not die.
Is it each click like a number of hit points that you absorb, or is you
get you get hit points. I think it's like a static percentage of your HP every time. I want to say it was 75. I can't remember 100%.
So just to clarify, I just tried it in training mode. If you land on top of 2 bots in the inner circle, you immediately go up to 400 shields off the ultimate. So not only does it give you shields, it gives you a rather substantial amount. And one thing I'm going to note here, though, and
the ultimate also one-shots 200 HPs, or 300 HP.
I will note one thing that could be an Achilles heel here. The Doomfist, as good as he looks to be on the dive stuff, that just kind of occurs to me is that from the looks of it, he's kind of a bigger dude hitbox wise. He's going to be much easier to hit, I think, than some of your other heroes like Genji or Tracer. And 2 things. One is that in theory, this makes McCree, if McCree doesn't get immediately blown up by his dive, better again. Like a McCree that is just able to be away from the Doomfist, probably going to deal really good damage to him. Or the second option is, I'm not quite sure what his head hitbox size is yet, but you do wonder how Widow's going to deal with him also.
Oh god, you do not want to play Widow against this character. You were about to get jumped in the worst way.
Well, it's like you can get jumped, but if his head hitbox is big enough, he's going to be one-shot range.
He can like there's very few maps with sight lines longer than the uppercut slam combo. You can also just like Like the ultimate is insane in terms of it's not like good because it's so easy to dodge. If you're like a strong player, it's like you can play Roadhog and dodge it. It's not hard. So without CC, it's really hard to land ultimates. But you just ult into the backline, I think, so you have all your cooldowns on, and then it's just a bad day for like this character. You're concerned of like if you think like Genji is good against Widow, this character is way better than Genji against Widow in terms of just like killing her fearlessly. I mean, it's like you can hit this headshot on Genji, but it's going to be vastly harder to like hit the headshot on initiating Doomfist because both of his abilities are non-linear. Like both of his gap closers are non-linear. The only gap closer that is linear is the right click. But you're probably not going to be using that to initiate on like a Widow on high ground. But the uppercut slam is like the first one is like sort of a slope up, and then the slam is like a dash forward, but you arc downwards. So compared to like headshotting a dashing Genji, it's actually going to be, I think, a lot harder. Even if the hitbox is bigger, it's going to be the unpredictable motion is going to be like really difficult to deal with.
Okay. That's the thing where I think that is actually the to be determined part. Where like we can make our initial impressions on it, but if the hitbox is on the bigger side, like it's very easy for this to shift the other way if people go, wait, I just have to key on this and kill him. Not saying he'll go out that way. I mean, very well could be the part where he's just unstoppable dive, but he also could be a big beefy target. So, I mean, I'm willing to reserve judgment on that.
From the standpoint of him being a beefy target, I mean, you can't just discord him, and he's definitely easier to take care of if he's discorded than say a Genji or a Tracer or anything like that. So there is some point to that. But let's talk about the. Oh, you want to make a point there, or?
Yeah, I was just gonna say is that I think for Doomfist, my gut impression is that's actually gonna be pretty bad for him if he spotted out before he dives in. Like, I don't think you have the ability and we'll see, but I don't think you necessarily want to like charge in the way you would like a Tracer or Genji. I think he will have to use some of his tools to be more flanky and deceptive on the move in.
Yeah, which is good. That would suck if he would just easily just jump into a six-man ball or a 5-man ball and just be able to get out of that easily and kill everybody. That'd be ridiculous. I mean, crazy bad. Let's talk about the ultimate though, the Meteor Strike. So this is the big, obviously the big power, the big ability for him. And, in terms of the UI for it, it's really, really interesting. So the first thing is like, it's called the Meteor Strike. And the first thing, he jumps into the air. Okay. So he's invulnerable.
Untargetable.
Yeah, he's invulnerable, baby. He's one of the few. Is there any other character that's invulnerable?
There's some invulns, but like it's like May Ice Block and stuff.
Yeah, true.
They're not a Wraith form, but like they're not nearly. This is like the
no
best
ultimate
invuln in the
though.
game.
I don't think
because you're also not only are you are actually invisible and invuln,
right?
Until you choose to finish the ultimate, or at the time it runs out and it makes you come down.
Right. So you jump in the air.
Good escape.
And then all of a sudden there's a circle that appears on the ground that you can control with your movement keys. And so like you're just basically tracking to see where exactly you want to land, and then when you land, there'll be a perimeter of like like earth shattering type of feel to it. And okay, so anyway, it lasts about 3 seconds, I would say, something like that.
I think it's like 4 or 5.
Like
it's
4 or 5?
It's kind of long.
People can run away.
You can like pop this, and like people are just. I mean, you could like. There's very few places where people could actually like prevent you from escaping. There's gonna be some like cool metagame of like the Doomfist tries to escape, and you just like a really smart player knows exactly where he's gonna go and just is like following him because he's not that fast, right? So like if you make the correct guess, it's very hard for the Doomfist to like change his mind and go somewhere else. So there's gonna be like some cool counterplays to it. And it's very easy to dodge. So it's like if he casts it right on top of you, it's like really easy to just step off of it. But the other thing is it lets him get all of his cooldowns back. So when he lands, he's about to go flying once again. Like the character's gonna be. It's like the ult is kind of hilarious. Like it's gonna be the ult is like the coolest part of the character because I think it's the most unique ability in Overwatch right now.
The one thing about the ultimate too, though, is that like a lot of people think, okay, use the ult immediately, try and go down on it. Is that you can actually be in the air for a substantial period of time. So there's something to be said for mind games there in terms of setup and otherwise. Like, do you want to sit there and stand and fight in a situation where the ultimate could be immediately dropping down on you? And also, like, even though characters can get out of it, if you're dealing with other things at the same time, it's going to be difficult. Like, I think there is something to be said for the terror factor when that ultimate is in play. The other thing, too, is I'm just looking forward to seeing combinations with it, right? Where obviously
like
Zarya hasn't been
Zarya
as
is the
favored at the moment.
6K Meteor Punch.
That would be
Well,
amazing.
I'm sure it'll happen. I'm sure
we're
it'll
going to
happen.
find out
At some
in
point, it
or-
is a legit
Yes.
combo. It's just not
We-
as good as like Pulse Bomb or something that's not as
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have Big Bang, but I'm not sure what you have to call this. We'll probably just call this like one punch
Yeah.
because of,
The one
if you're in the
punch.
center of it, you get pretty gibbs.
Yeah,
So.
it kills. It has 300 HP. It's also a one shot on the Torb turret, so Torb mains beware.
Oh,
This
is
character's
it? Okay.
really good against Torbjorn. Like,
So it has
really good against Torbjorn.
it has a lot of a self-destruct feel to it, right? Then.
Well, thank God he's checking Torbjorn.
Yeah, exactly.
God
you know,
forbid
really
he
locks
wasn't.
down the meta.
He is doing far too much right now.
The scary thing though is what I think about this character is that all of these characters that were already like on, you might say, the fringes of the meta, like things like McCree and Widow, where there was like you could slip this in sometimes. You know, like I know this dive's really aggressive, but we can, you know, they're not like that aggressive, right? Like they're not going totally crazy. Like I honestly predict people are going to stop running a second support to run Sombra just so they can like not have a backline. Like currently the dive, you still have like a Zen
Wow.
Lucio
Really?
standing next to each other to like output damage because Zen Discord is such a valuable ability. And I still think Discord's good, but I think now you just don't need it. Before you were using Discord so that you could guarantee dash resets even if a Diva Matrix was on them the whole time. You know, the Winston combo does 80 plus all the Taze you can do. Genji combo does 80, you know, assuming quick melee.
That's good.
Plus, you know, anything else you can get in, and that's already 160. So you were getting very, very close to just burning a 200 HP character through a perfect Matrix play, which is pretty rare anyway. But now it's like, screw Discord. I don't need the Discord to get over 200. I just combo you with Doomfist, and now I have a Sombra hacking packs. Doomfist also has insane synergy with Sombra because the shields enable you to like fight packs probably more greedily than any other character. Like maybe Diva was about as good at just standing on packs fearlessly with on a Sombra Mega and just like farming. But Doomfist is going to be a very scary character to fight on the Sombra Mega with how much burst potential he has and like how much self-save potential he has, hitting a big combo, getting a huge amount of shields and buying himself, you know, 3 extra seconds that you just did not expect. Like this, I think this character is gonna, like, people think dive is aggressive right now. I mean, my prediction is that this is gonna go like to the next degree.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Which is really interesting because we do have a topic of the, or we actually have a couple topics of the week, and I guess we might as well bring one up right now, given that this leads into it pretty well. You know, one of the topics has been just people starting to, I guess, grow tiresome of the dive comp. You know, just the dive meta right now, and you know, we've seen the dive meta go from this is fresh, this is awesome, to okay, you know, this is starting to just settle down. This is starting to solidify, and we know it's going to be around for a while. And now it's to the point where people are wanting a change, I guess you could say. And even though there's still little tweaks here and there, you know, we've seen Sombra obviously pop up a little bit more recently. For the most part, dive is still the, you know, just the fundamentals of everything that's being done right now. So with Doomfist coming out, and at least your initial review of it, Jake, and dive being, you know, even more powerful with a character like Doomfist. What do you guys think about just the overall state of the meta right now? And do you feel like what some of this commentary is right, you know, some vocal commentary is right now, which is you guys are getting tired of this dive meta?
Well, I would say in general, human beings overall will get tired of seeing the same thing or experiencing the same thing over and over again, regardless of what it is, what the context is. Like, that's not even an Overwatch specific thing. It's just, for example, if you watch EU competition right now and most of the teams are basically rogue, but running their composition at a weaker level a lot of the time, you're seeing a lot of the same things. So obviously people will want variety, even if they initially like something. So that's one thing to begin with there. However, one thing I'll say there is that even if the comp stays on dive for a while, it would probably be healthy if Doomfist was represented there, because even though it's still a similar strategy that would be being used in terms of blowing stuff up, you're at least getting a different look on it if Doomfist is in fact viable and being used in those situations. Now, in terms of the long run, I mean, I think the design goal for Overwatch is to hit a point where you have multiple styles active at the same time. They're not there yet, but we have had points in the meta where we have been there. So, I mean,
Before they nerfed Hog, thoughts?
Before what?
Before
Before
people
what?
are shying away from Hog even.
Oh, Hog.
Yeah, true. People already weren't playing Hog, so that was
Yeah.
a really strong time to nerf him. I think really shook the game up. Just had to bury the pig, man.
Sure.
They just-
I mean,
I
if
guess.
you're looking
So
for
low.
sympathy for me though on Roadhog, like that.
You
dealing
hate
with Hook-
Roadhog.
Yes,
You
I hate
hated
Roadhog, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't really have a lot of sympathy. Like, yes, bury him.
Well,
Well,
I guess
with him, you bury the German and the Russian.
yeah, and that's the problem. And so I think that the ideal situation for Overwatch, long term, and if it was in a state, would be a case where some maps require a certain meta and some maps require a different type of or composition meta, right? That's what I'm talking about. And so that way we would just, I think, naturally see some diversity in like a match, just a normal event match. But right now, it seems like the same meta works across all the maps. So I wish they would change, just map architecture and things like that a lot more, so that would be the case. I don't know exactly what it would be, but there's got to be some maps that would limit dive. Just like creating a very, I don't know, just
Horizon
space.
It's pretty anti-dive,
yeah,
but
Horizon's a good example.
Instead, you play Torbarisa, so I don't really know if that's what people were looking for. But,
the problem is, to some extent, for the dive characters, that the dive character, in theory, you would think that like dive would be good at picking people off around the edges, like really good on skirmishing, and you'd think a natural counter there, which I mean, LGEvil tried running this quite a bit for a time, is taking control of shorter spaces, right? Like running beefier characters, trying to space control in a small area.
Yep.
One of the problems there, though, is that the flanking characters in the game are also really good at clearing out tight areas between Pulse Bomb, Dragon Blade, just the general way that Genji dashes work over. Yeah,
Winston Cleave and Genji Dash are really the biggest problems with trying to run tanks into dive, because those things don't care what you're doing. And if you want to sit in a little ball, they are happy to farm ultimates off of you.
So, like, here's the thing you could do with Genji in theory, and some players have like already thrown this out in various conversations, that you could actually buff Genji shurikens while nerfing his dash damage. And what that would do is that that would arguably add more skill to the character, because now you have to get more of your damage from something that's less guaranteed, right? Like, it's not particularly hard to hit the dash. But the other thing that would do as well is that would actually nerf Genji pretty heavily in AoE situations, where right now, how does Genji break into a room and just murder everyone? When that situation occurs, is that he dashes in, some guy was low, they die, now he can dash through everyone else another time, and he's done 100 damage to everyone in the room, and God forbid a guy died on the second dash, because guess what, here comes a third dash for extra damage. So
once you get the second dash, 99% of fights are over.
Yeah,
so there is something to be said where Tracer and Genji are really good at dealing with situations that arguably should be more their weaker point, which is when a team is sort of grouped up, because they just have such effective ways of clearing out grouped up areas. And for Genji, that's even before you consider like Blade cleaving through, which I mean is probably fine. It's just the dash itself is a little bit much. And so I think going back to the question about maps, is that maps do have areas where you could be more tightly clustered and take advantage of that to make a team perhaps feel punished running multiple dive, but because the dive heroes are so good at clearing out tiny rooms, it doesn't really matter.
I mean, I think unless you want to make a map that's just like linear, like a hallway, like people are, like the comps that you need a map that actually forces you to trade spam to really make Reinhardt good in the current state of the meta. And I mean forces, like you need a map with without flanks. And that's just it's not going to be fun. But I mean, you're not going to just go tanks. You're going to go like Bastion Junkrat if you make a map that's actually good enough to totally make it so you really can't run dive, because it's you think King's Row is choky. I'm talking the hallways in King's Row, but that's the whole map. It would be a really unfun map design, I think, just because of how mind numbing it would be. But I think it's not really a problem with map design, right? Some of these characters have been in the game since launch. It's really just a question of can you actually work in a Ryan and a Zarya into your composition? Are they good enough characters to play? We've already seen maps like King's Row where they were dominant on King's Row, even while even I saw Rogue running Ryan occasionally on King's Row. Even back when Rogue was originally innovating the triple DPS, they didn't believe in it on King's Row. These maps already exist that make dive very difficult to execute. But right now, people pretty much say, we don't care how good your map is. These characters are so unbelievably bad. We won't run them no matter what you give us. I don't care.
I'm going to note, though, it's less of a part of Ryan being bad per se right now, and also the part where, so if you rewind time a little bit, Ryan was basically seen as so good for quite a while that you couldn't run a Winston because Winston had key flaws. Then Winston gets buffed rather heavily on multiple points.
4 or 5 times in a row.
Yeah, and then suddenly just why would I run Reinhardt when Winston is so good? So I do think that there is something to be said for part of the issue here being not so much that Ryan is terrible, but Winston is way too good. Like, I would say there's a few ways you can go at Winston. I'd say the number one part is that it's fine for him to control space the way he does, but his DPS component is actually just really ridiculous right now. Like, when you cleave a team, you're doing massive amounts of damage, more so than the AoE healing can deal with nowadays. You hit the leap in part, the fact that he does damage, moves in, it's really strong. I think for Winston, I would not hit his survivability buffs that he got, but I would make Winston less of a, oh, I'm next to you, you're dead. And like, you can nerf it in multiple ways, right? You can get rid of leap damage to some extent. You can reduce the range on his cleave. You can do a lot to make it so that Winston is not just, LOL, I'm in your face. This is happening now. Like, you need...
I mean, the problem with Winston is, like, you can already Bionade Heal Amp is, like, tripling the Winston's DPS in terms of, like, you're like, not only counterplaying it, you're, like, rapidly healing through it. Things like Heal Station. Heal Station is, like, slightly less than Winston's DPS. Like, just a basic ability just denies... You can basically just man up on a Winston. If you have, like, 100 HP, you could take a man fight as Soldier just by yourself. So, to me, it's not even the cleave damage so much as the fact that if you're not running a comp with like Zen and Diva, Tracer, Soldier, like, like a ton of damage that dive represents, then you just can't kill him. Like, you can survive the cleave for a while, but it doesn't matter how long you can survive the cleave if you can't kill Winston. Like, he just will get to you eventually. Like, you'll run out of abilities, you'll run out of cooldowns, and guess what? He's just pressing his left click. We actually had a scrim against Canada last night with Team USA on Horizon Lunar Colony, because it's one of the maps that we're going to play in the group stages. And we pushed the first really fast because they were sitting in a corner on like Torbarisa, and Fact was cleaving them on Winston. And we were pushing last, and it was like one of those crazy caps where we capped first, and I think like 45 seconds or something. And we pushed last, and Fact had a primal up, and we didn't have pulse bombs. Like, neither team had a pulse bomb, and Fact had a primal, which is just like, I think part of it is like it makes running. I mean, like, Winston isn't as insane versus other dive competitions. He's quite good, but compared to when you want to sit in the ball on tanks and Winston's cleaving 5 people, he's going to have a primal every fight. And when your Roadhog does 25 damage, that's a pretty big problem.
Yeah, in general, I think that really one of the more effective ways of countering dive, because you've had more dive heroes, right? So I think even if Winston got nerfed, you would have different dive compositions like arise, but perhaps not the one we're accustomed to now. As much as I hate to say it, when people are just like, wow, Ryan is being run every game, you might want to return to that just by nerfing Winston. I mean, obviously the ideal would be to have it where you can run both equally, but Winston in general is very obviously too good right now. And it's just a case where he probably got too many buffs in a row, and also teams learned to play around him, where maybe you could nerf him back and make other playstyles a little bit more viable while still keeping that as a viable thing, because it is really strong right now.
You just can't buff a hero that many times in a row when he's already good. Like, it seems like some of the changes is like, I honestly was kind of disappointed in the Overwatch team, to be honest, because I saw like the changes, like when they changed the way Bionade interacts with Primal Rage. I mean, if you're running tanks, you're running Ana, period. Like, just period. Like, you have to run that character. It's almost impossible. I mean, there was Zen comps, but that's only when there was like a really strict Ryan meta because of how well Ana just, like, you need, if you're running against dive, you need an Ana to sustain tanks. There's just no other way to do it. With the current heroes available. So you're running Ana, and of course then let's assume the enemy team is running dive. So now we're evaluating like how well the tanks deal with dive. Before, you could at least nade the Winston and focus him, because then if he pops primal, he had 500 HP, which is you can deal with that. You can just burn a primal. He has to run away. Like, basically, if he pops Bionade with primal, he's just running with it, which is great for you, right? That's an ultimate just for an escape. You're like, yeah, I'll take that, no problem. But now you just primal, he bounties, you're like, yeah, great nade, bro. I'm just going to pop primal and have 1,000. And
but
you just can't get through that. You just actually can't get through that HP with tanks.
There's balance changes that are made. Okay, so sometimes things are changed for balance, but sometimes things are also changed because they should feel a certain way. The entire idea of Primal Rage is that you get your health back, period. It's not an idea where it's just like, it wasn't even really considered to be a healing ability. It's sort of, yes, it heals you, but the mindset of it is you pop Rage, you get a second wind. Bionade sort of stopping that was somewhat of an unintended functionality, where, yes, even though it might have had balance.
That existed in the game since Ana came out, by the way, and they caught it now. I mean, as everyone that I knew was like, just assumed that this is how the mechanic was supposed to work, because it was never not like this. It was like this until, like, for what, like 6 months, 7 months? It's quite a long time to not notice a bug if you're the Overwatch team. And it's
Sure,
also like,
as far
if
as
you're going to
I-
make that change, that's fine. Like, it's understandable. But you need to give something back. Like, you need to make Winston pay for that kind of change or give Ana something, because that matchup is a crucial matchup, right? Because if you're going to choose Zen, you're playing dive. And if you're going to choose Ana, you just can't deal with Winston. So the enemy team's running Winston. They're like, well, we got to run Zen. Well, we can't run Rhine. Let's run dive. And now everyone's playing dive, right? Like,
the most I'll say about Primal. The most I'll say about Primal Rage, I actually don't think the full heal. Well, there's two things, right? Is that in terms of how ult design generally works, is that, and you can track this all the way back to like ult refunds, all the rest, is that generally speaking, ults are preferred to feel powerful, is something you can sort of glean from the design. And it feels bad when you use your ult that's supposed to heal you and then just nothing happens, even if that's a thing there. Well,
it's a great ultimate, right?
Or Earth Shatter, just hit people in the ground.
I mean,
at a bigger
stand on top of the
point.
payload. Oh, my Genji, you press space bar.
That's different though. That's based on skill. That's based on, that's a little different.
Anyways,
a little different. It's a little
To
different.
complete my point is, I think with Primal Rage, I would say there's probably just more of a balance issue there, which is not. It's not that the Winston gets full HP that's necessarily the worst part there. The part is that Primal Rage lasts for a really long time, and that was probably fine before people were getting better use out of Winston when he was in Primal Rage, but now you sort of have an ability here where he feels unkillable for a long time, can really delay for a long period of time, and now people have actually gotten really good at doing damage in it. Where, like, back in the day when people prop Primal Rage, they weren't great at finishing kills with it. They'd sort of knock people around. But we've now hit an era where Winstons are very good at finishing their kills. So there might be something to be said for Primal Rage to just knock some seconds off of its duration so it doesn't feel like
I think that would be a good nerf
forever when it's used.
But
absolutely, I think he needs a lot more than that.
But for sure he needs a couple things, I think, dialed back. And
it's a nice slap in the face with the old nerf pad.
It's one of those things too where they just doing a little bit forcefully too, and I don't know how the cycle of these changes work. I mean, they've always been really, really quick, right, on the dev team, but it could be one of those things where, they got one in and they already had one planned already, for like a change that was coming up like in a normal release, normal update, and they might have hot fixed one like kind of early just because of just some reactionary type of thing, and it's kind of led to this. But there was a while where Winston was never played, right? They wanted Winston to be played, so they made all these kind of changes. Same with D.Va, right? It's the same thing. So it's just that type of reaction again here, and like ZP was saying, people have gotten super good at these characters too, and it's hard for them to measure it sometimes, right? Like a lot of the times they use analytics as a way to try to balance things, and you can't really do that, and like data doesn't really reveal itself until you have enough data, and that could take a month sometimes, before you actually really know across the board what a character looks like. So I think that might be affecting things too.
To sort of give some context into how important Winston is right now as far as competitive teams go, though, is that there's been more than one competitive team that basically decided to fold and pack it up because they weren't able to find a good enough Winston player in this meta. And I mean, there's definitely been cases in other metas where people have said that for every other role, but it's been particularly glaring in this meta where if you don't have a good Winston, you basically do not get to play the game. Like, it's very difficult to find a team that does well right now without good Winston. And even then, there's teams that were doing well on all cylinders that, whether it be on the Winston player, just how they're playing with it, where if you don't play well with it, you end up losing the game. And point to like Renegades versus FN or GFE there, where Renegades clearly was not playing the dive part of it with their tanks as well as other teams, and it turned out to be just a critical weakness. And compared to the NA Contenders teams that did have very good tank players that were able to apply better pressure. So,
all right. Well, I think the last bit of this, we spent a lot of time on this, but maybe just one question for both of y'all. Is this hurting Overwatch?
You want to take it, ZP?
Okay, so asking if a meta being the same time for a while is hurting Overwatch, I mean, maybe. It's clearly a point where you have people complaining right now, and I think in general that if you were in a perfect design world, you would want to have many viable aspects. So, I mean, if the goal is to have multiple viable aspects that are entertaining to watch, and being stuck on one meta for a while is somewhat troublesome. And though, has it done any like serious damage? Probably not. I mean, it's a case where metas will shift. If the meta stays on dive for another 3 months, then I think we have a really serious problem. But in terms of how long a meta stayed around, we're at a point here where we've seen multiple iterations where for a while it's triple tank, now it's dive. Presumably it's going to swap back to something else at some point. Maybe not right now with Doomfist, but I don't know. I think these things go in cycles.
Okay.
It would be nice if you had multiple viable parts. I actually think that the healthiest point in the meta for Overwatch historically has been sort of the changing of the guard. Because when Dive was first coming out, you still had a lot of people running more 2-2-2s and some teams running 3 tanks. And you did have a time where you had a really rich variety. So perhaps there's something to the idea of like more frequent balance changes to keep the player base off guard. So players themselves are still debating between what's the best. And you don't have a team like Rogue saying a blueprint for multiple months straight.
Yeah. Jake?
Yeah. I mean, my view is just Blizzard is way too timid. And if you're going to be that timid, you better be like really, really smart and like make absolutely the perfect decisions if you're going to take this long to do them. And when they took like, I can't remember how long was between the patch prior to the McCree Reaper Roadhog patch, but like that, I mean, I don't even know what they're thinking with that patch. Like, I mean, I guess you can play like a Reaper a little bit now. Like McCree still kind of sucks because you can't deal with a Winston on his head, can't deal with the Diva on him, can't deal with Genji on him.
Those changes were more incremental, right? Than they were.
But what I mean is that those changes were already. Yeah, that's what I mean. They're incremental changes. They're timid changes, and they made. I mean, with Roadhog, it was like Roadhog was the last stand for slow tanky compositions. The last stand for Reinhardt fundamentally because those characters have insane synergy, right? Like Reinhardt, Zarya, Roadhog. You know. Your Reinhardt protects your Zarya Roadhog from spam, which are the two most dangerous things for those characters, or spam rather, the most dangerous thing for both those characters. And then Roadhog actually gives teeth to your Reinhardt. He's not just like a block. You actually can like get something done with that. Yeah, and then you can bring people in for the hammer. You can deposition the enemy Rein for a shatter. You can deposition any character, like even a Winston for a shatter. You can combo with so many. There's just so much combo potential between those three characters, and. But what people don't understand is like as annoying as Roadhog was or whatever. I don't know. People thought he was annoying. I think people are just don't understand the game well.
People, also me. I also thought Roadhog was.
I mean, I honestly think that most of people's complaints about Roadhog are because they don't like because it doesn't feel like there's counterplay. Because when you get hooked, you have to watch the animation and die to the Roadhog, and that's like a really upsetting feeling.
Yeah,
and I understand that's like not good or that like doesn't feel good, but I also think that it's just like. A pretty radical mistake to assume that makes a character like OP. Like I honestly think if Roadhog's hook just like deleted you when you got hit by it, which obviously would be like OP, but I think it would like somehow feel less frustrating. I mean, that's maybe a bad example, but my point is, I guess, that you can't just nerf a hero that feels quote unquote frustrating without doing stuff like you just did to the meta, making dive like an unstoppable, like uncounterable meta. You know, even in past metas where people were running tanks, you could even in like the depths of the triple tank meta. You know, as soon as quad tank was over, Rogue was already running dive, right? They were just fearless. They were like, no, we can make this work. We're good at the game. And they did make it work. It was undeniable. Who knows? Maybe it was just the strongest back then and no one had realized it yet.
So just to be clear, my main complaint with Roadhog historically, and this comes from the part where like I've had to play with real life friends and multiple accounts. So I've seen like multiple stages of play and all the rest. I will tell you when playing in like a diamond level game back in the day, the main thing that would kill me more than anything else is that I could deal with every skill-based character that's more on a gradient curve. The character that killed me more often than it otherwise would in those games by like just an insane margin. And sure, some of it's not giving as much respect as you probably should, but it was Roadhog. So that said, I think for me, the way we've changed Roadhog is that I would have tried to up the skill required for certain things of hooks. Like the hook widely was known as having a hitbox the size of a barn. Like the hook was easier to hit than it probably
it's designed for the lowest common denominator of player. Absolutely.
Right. So, I mean, I think what I would have liked for Roadhog is if he was a terror at lower skill levels, which it seems like was a bigger reason for the change, is that I do wonder what would have happened if you just reduce the hitbox size of the hook and basically change some of his mechanics to be still the same high end if you were able to perform at that level. But you changed it in such a way that it was harder to do, to where if you weren't really good at Roadhog, you'd be missing far more hooks, and therefore people would be experiencing getting one shot less at those lower levels, and hopefully there'd be harmony in the universe. So that's the only thing I'd say about Roadhog there, is that I do think Roadhog needed to change, and he needed to get nerfed, but I would have nerfed it in such a way that he could have kept his high end if you were really good at landing hooks.
Well, the spread change was a really bad change, because as fun as it is and was to like just blast people away with the right click from like insane range when the spread was made like 20% tighter or whatever, that was like really fun to play Roadhog during that, because it was like, wow, like I just like fearlessly throw hooks because I just have like, I'm like better than half the DPS in the game, so it's not a big deal. I can just man up without hook. But that's a big problem to me. Like I think hook should have stayed the central part of his kit. I totally agree. Hitbox needed to be smaller. It needed to be harder to do. Yeah. But when they made that spread change, Roadhog felt so oppressive because it didn't feel like missing hooks mattered, because he just started fighting after he missed hook. He just like would throw hook and then just keep going in. I feel like prior to that on Roadhog, you had to be a little more scared when you had no hook cooldown. Although, you know, to be fair, it was 6 seconds. So there's less time. Well, but during those 6 seconds of downtime, you were extremely vulnerable, because a Tracer at mid-range hitting like at the range at which he hits almost every headshot on you was not one-shottable with the left click. And then when they changed the spread, Tracer became so much easier to deal with. Like you could one-shot these squishies so much easier, and it felt like you just couldn't. Those characters felt much, much harder to play against Roadhog with that spread change.
You changed the identity.
It deleted the counterplay. Yeah, it changed the identity of the character, but also like the whole fun part of interacting with Roadhog, the whole high skill part. The reason I thought he was a good character in the game was hook. He's so powerful. He's got the hook up. You're scared. He's like, there was a whole metagame of like, maybe I just never throw the hook. Maybe I just keep shooting at you. What are you gonna do about it? You'll never commit because I always have hook. You know, like if you're a really smart player, you'd be very tactical about when you're actually going to commit to throwing a hook. You'd want to get them all their cooldowns out before you'll actually give it to them. But you know, with the spread change, it didn't feel like it mattered. You know, like the Roadhog misses hook, it's like it didn't feel like you got anything out of it. You counterplayed the hook. You outplayed the Roadhog. It was like, that's sick, that's impressive. And you get nothing from it because he's going to keep fighting you. And that I think is a huge problem. Like, you know, that's what probably made the character feel so frustrating, especially for lower skill players.
All right. Well, why don't we wrap that up, even though we spent like about 30 minutes on that talk. And we still got like a few things to talk about. But why don't we talk about some of the events, since we had one conclude, which was Overwatch Contenders.